consultants and I'm the project manager.
Okay, so who's the guy who does the finance?
Finance? Yes.
I'm the
Can you
finance
just
guy.
show me now quickly how you calculate it? Let me see how I
What do you want to know?
How much can you save?
Ooh,
Do you have a backup slide for
yeah, I
that?
do have.
Can I see it?
Sure. If you put it on. What do you want to know?
I want to see the number, the total number. What is the total saving? So 2.1 million.
This is the initial sale
Okay, 560,
of
70,000.
consolidating into one building.
And how did you get to that number?
Well, we divided the rent by 2,
All right.
and that's one building.
Yeah. And did you consider layout costs?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
No, not layoffs, but layoffs.
And inflation? Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. That the CAGR is minus 10% as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm so sorry I'm late.
I was just getting started.
Just get going. Let's we discuss finance ways, right?
Yes.
That's why he always wants to do. Let's start from the beginning. Nice meeting you again.
Hi, my name is Stuart. I'm the project manager.
Magnus.
Sorry, being like chatting. Hey. Let's start.
Sure.
I have just some 12 minutes.
Yeah, we're going to talk really fast then. When looking at the problem at first glance, you see that declining revenue stream and rising costs are the main problems. We are focused on the cost side of these problems from an owner perspective. And the core problems is overcapacity and low productivity. And our solutions, in short, is to move production into one building, reduce the workforce in 2 different steps, increase productivity among the remaining employees, and try to interact the firm with and work with the company culture. And this next slide is just how to illustrate the high productivity cost to overcapacity. And here is the workforce and culture, how this contributes to the low productivity. And here you can see some interesting things. So in group 2, even though the productivity is only 28%, there's still an excess workforce of 8 full-time employees. So you can do significant cost savings here. So yeah.
Never seen that
No.
before.
And also the company culture is a little bit poor, and historically the company has not shown pursuit of profit maximization.
Yeah,
Sorry?
right.
No, the HR
Look at the
manager.
finance
It's just an idiot.
No, yeah, I know.
Look at the utilization, that's your problem.
Yeah, so we propose that we're gonna lay off this excess workforce and increase productivity, and in so we can actually hire more people in step 2.
Yeah.
And yeah, as we said, we're gonna move the production into building A, and we're gonna move it into building A because it's more economic to move 40% into A and then 59% into B, and it also has a symbolic value to move the B because this is the group 2, which has the poorest production figures. So that's why we're going to move them into building A.
That sounds like a good idea, say. If we had internal discussions and problems, would it matter? Would we still be okay if we did it the other way around?
Of course it would be okay, but it would be not wise because we want to, group 3 is the ones who are producing by far best. So we want them to be like the leader in increasing productivity for group A and group 2 and 1.
Yep.
And also, if productivity were to increase, we could initially lay off 1 machine for group 2. And hence we could save more money.
So what we have identified here is 3 potential sources of improvement. We could reduce the fixed cost, reduce the labor cost, and improve the company culture. Now I'm just going to walk through what we think can be improved in these areas. So in short, we can see that in fixed cost we can work with the buildings and with the machines. On labor we can reorganize in order to make it more cost efficient, the labor force, and also increase productivity. And in line to increase productivity, we think that we need to improve the company culture. And this is almost a three-step process where the core objective is to unify the firm into one. And in this work we have to define core values, we have to erode both the physical and psychological barriers between workers and divisions. But starting off by the fixed costs. As Magnus earlier mentioned, by consolidating the buildings, we will save 570,000 euros. And later, when we have increased productivity, we can also lay off these machines, saving another 230,000 euros annually. So we can save 800,000 euros annually, which is quite incredible. No? The sneak peek. Moving on to the labor costs. We think that it is necessary to immediately reorganize the staff so that we don't have this excess labor force. And we believe that the best way to do this is right now lay off 16 operators and 1 supervisor. This supervisor from one of the supervisors from Group 2.
What kind of layoff packages will they get?
They will get, you mean by...
Yeah, how much money, how long have they worked, and then, you know, how much money will they get?
We have included the layoff costs in the total analysis as that is the goal further down the line to analyze.
Okay.
And then as a step 2, even if it says 1 here, as a step 2 we need to improve the efficiency of the Romanian laborers. So that...
Sorry, I'm not following. 2.
yeah, it should...
Where are the...
Sorry, it's a typo. It's just said like 1, 2, 3.
Oh, okay.
Step
So it's a 3-step.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Okay. Good. Then I'm following.
And as I mentioned earlier, this efficiency improvement will also make it possible to lay off a machine, but also by improving the remaining workforce productivity, we can also lay off 11 additional workers, saving 510,000 euros more. So, and
So
this
we're laying off that's in total, how many?
28 people,
28 people.
27 operators and 1 supervisor. It might seem like a lot, but we are in a really competitive, and I think that the alternative would be to move the production abroad. And that
Move the production forward.
that as we see it in the long run, that is the alternative, because we need to cut costs right now in order to ensure profitability in the future. But this is
I
not.
see irrational thinking of this, but
And we
it's
will-
quite emotional to me. And will I be the one who will sort of dissolve our whole family company and sell it and go forward with it?
But
If I ask you a question, how long time do you have before you run out of your entire company with the cost structure as it is?
Yeah, but still, I mean, I want our little baby to still have the values and core values and the attitude.
And that's what we want to
built up for
ensure.
years.
That's what we want to ensure. We want to ensure that the company can still produce here in Sweden. We don't want to move the production, and that's why we need to cut costs now. So we have.
So that is not an alternative, that's what you're saying now.
I'm saying that if we don't do this, then we will have to move production
Or
we
go
need-
bankrupt?
or go bankrupt. We need to cut the labor costs. That's what I'm saying.
I'm willing to listen to the rest.
Yeah, definitely. But I'm thinking of the
But that
28
is
people.
that is just that, like in the future, because you need to increase productivity quite a lot to be able to fire those 11 additional operators. So it's more like a suggestion that you could do this if each worker get like more productive during the day. So it's like that the first step is still to fire 16 operators.
Hmm.
So it's more like in a broad, like long-term perspective.
So, as you have mentioned, I see that you're a little shocked.
Yes, sorry. I'm sorry, it came in as a
There
shock.
will, of course, there will be some implementational problems with this, but we believe that the key to both increase productivity and maintain a high spirit in the company is to improve the culture of the company. And we have this 3 steps process of defining core values, as I said, and then I think that you should invite your supervisors to a meeting where you define some kind of core values, traditions, things, and because they are the key players to affecting and influencing your workers to be a part of this and to be on board. And we will start some kind of transformational process where we not just physically merge the buildings, we want to also like merge the divisions into one and instead creating teams that work with different things. So that everyone feels that it's not us and them, it's we. And our problems, the company's problems is the employees' problems, and the company's success is the employee's success. And by doing this, of course, we need to have some motivational incentives.
Just stop a little bit. Invite the organization for a general meeting. Who should do that, do you think? Is that something that I should do, or is it more of the board?
We will get back to that.
We have a detailed description of the different areas of responsibility for the top management team, and it will follow shortly.
Okay.
So, moving on, Ragnar will talk a little about some kind of giving you a picture of how this is supposed to be done.
Okay.
Before we start, the incentives that you talked about in the previous slide, what are those, do you think?
I think it's important that the employees have the opportunity to develop inside the company, to be able to be experts on what they want to do. So if they want to produce something, if they are more interested in one thing than another, then they should be able to specialize in that. And also we want to have like team building courses. We want to encourage our employees to go to different seminars and training classes to improve as themselves. And those things I think will be important.
Yeah.
And to include all managerial levels in this.
Great.
Okay, moving on to.
I need to rush up in 2 minutes, just so you know.
Okay, this is a transformation map, just describing like.
I will
in-
say,
Okay, sorry. Just in like step 1, step 2, step 3, how these 3 streams of changes will lead to this vision, which will reach a break even in 2015. I think you can look at this a little bit closer, like you have the slides and everything. So I will move forward to task assignments. So this is our proposed like scope of work on each key personnel and how much involvement each of those will have in this kind of process. You can see that HR is kind of have high involvement in many of the areas, given that a lot is like regarding labor and culture.
Yeah, that sounds.
Do you have a question or?
No.
Okay. But I think you can also look at this a little bit more in detail later. So we'll move on. These are our desired outcomes, given that all our changes are implemented successfully. So you will reach a break even in 2015, and this is given like no revenue increases at all. So it's kind of a positive outlook. I mean, if you could work with revenues and like try to improve profitability that way, you would also have a margin to become profitable in early years. You can see the total cost impact on each year, and these are like the key takeaways that you will have full utilization of fixed assets, which is at the moment a kind of a core problem in the business. And you will like integrate the whole company, create a high performing culture, because now like productivity is too low, even though it's low in the industry, but you should be like outperforming the industry or individually.
I need to rush off, but you'll stay
Yeah,
until
yeah,
you're done, right?
please continue.
Good.
Okay.
So 2 minutes more.
So this is the key activities and implementation timeline. Here we want to outline the different steps in implementing these changes that we have proposed. What's important here, to just look at now, is the milestones. All of the steps you can look into more closely, like the defined core values in quarter 3 of 2013, which is right now, tomorrow, start working on that. And also to identify productivity inhibitors, like what's making the employees be less productive than they should.
Yeah.
And milestones, hopefully by quarter 4 2013, we will have all employees on board with the new vision. hopefully. It's a little bit optimistic, but still. And the first significant fixed costs savings will be realized hopefully by the end of quarter three in 2014.
Okay,
So-
that's quite late. Could we make it come sooner anyway?
Yeah, we could probably work on making it come sooner. This is just a careful, not too aggressive approach in order to have the whole company be prepared and be comfortable with the changes.
Okay.
And given all these changes and these programs, we hopefully will have a break even be reached in the end of 2015, which is completely disregarding any increases in revenue.
Okay, I'm gonna have to be in another meeting in 30 seconds.
Okay, we'll sum up. Here's no fundamental changes. You can look at that later. Saying how to handle some of the risks. And just to sum up, we have a problem, we have the solutions, and we have a vision. And the vision will be reached by working on the solutions. And as I said earlier, before, in the implementation slide, break-even will be reached within 3 years. Any questions?
Yeah, I can see CFO use data. Are you gonna help me with that data?
Sure. No
Yeah.
problem.
I mean, is you guys just gonna help me or someone else?
Sure. We
Yeah, I
can
guess
bring
that
in any
is
person.
really
you like.
well.
Okay.
And we also have the first steps, what to do in the morning, like what to do tomorrow morning in order to kick this project off. Some initial things to do. These also tie back to the implementation timeline.
Yeah.
And so you can see the CEO is responsible for setting up a meeting in order to plan the production consolidation, etc. And yes.
All right, we'll have a separate meeting and talk about this. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Right, thanks a lot. What did you do well?
I think
I think our solutions are good.
we had a lot of fun.
as a last group, I think that we really try to use the criticism we have gotten on the other projects and get everything in, especially on the timeline and things and who does what, and also be more concrete in what should be done, not just improve this. How?
Anything else? No? Anything you could improve on, you think?
We could probably have, before you left as the CEO, I should have stopped you as a product manager. I should have just asked you to look at the summary really quick. Just give you a 15-second breakdown on it, and then go back to where we were previously, and then continue on with the CFO.
That's a really good idea, and also, if that wasn't possible, if he or she had to leave, just ask, can I give you a call later on this afternoon and schedule another meeting? That's something that's possible to do really quickly.
What else we could have managed the time a little bit better? Of course, there are always a lot of questions, including the role play thing. But I believe we had a decent structure, and so given we had actually practiced before, so we were about in between maybe 11 and 12 minutes in the run through of the presentation. So
Yeah.
we were just almost there.
Good. From you guys?
I like that they had numbers, like clear numbers, but I would have liked to have seen a bit more visual presentation of what these mean. It's a lot easier to follow like a diagram or line than to just look at the exact numbers or a percentage, a fraction of cost.
Which specific slide? Maybe
Machines,
these two, maybe this one and that one.
Yeah,
So you have like maybe some bar graphs, just like showing the.
yeah, or just a percentage of the total amount or something.
Good. Anything else?
Perhaps you were on stage.
I'd say it definitely depends on the situation. In this case, I think you had different roles. Then, of course, I mean, you can let two of your colleagues sit down, and then if there are any questions within their specific areas, then they come up and talk about it. But it's a really dependent on the client situation. And now we're just the two of us, and then it's maybe not as good to have 4 people presenting. But if there were 10, the whole board, then why not? Let everyone has one section each. I mean, if you're on the meeting, you should have a purpose of being there. So. Anything else?
Maybe be more humble in the way you. It's rational solutions, but not always the emotional best solutions. So maybe put it in a more humble and create a sense of urgency within the board's members, and then make them come up with a solution together with you guys.
Building on that, I forgot to say the last group was in their summary. They had a really nice way of introducing it, telling about our company's strengths, which is it's quite good to start off with, like building on this, because this is what you have and this is what you're good at, and also creating a little bit more better atmosphere in that way. All right, thanks. Alexander.
So good was the division of how you presented. I think that was good, so I can ask specific questions to either one of you. What could have been improved, I was hinting at in the beginning, was I wanted to see the numbers in a graph, and also more detail of numbers, so exactly how you calculated in the appendix, which wasn't there. I'm sure you did it, but you know, as a client, I would have liked to see that. I think you could have improved in the beginning also, that in the first slide, so this is a problem, it was just kind of bullets, you could have done it maybe a little bit longer.
Good. I think you did a great presentation. In terms of content, good job with the implementation of risk plans, I think. And also, in general, I think most of the slides were quite sort of consulting-ish. They looked like they could be in a presentation. You use a lot of models, I guess, that you've learned throughout the course, which are really good. You used something similar to foosballs, I saw, and like matrices, and used the transformation map. Really nice way of illustrating how the change will go about. And also, instead of foosballs, we use something that's called a racing matrix in terms of the this slide, I don't know, the one responsible for different things. That's a really nice way of showing that who's responsible for what. We use something called RACI, which stands for responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. And so that you could put an R, A, C, and Y instead, so between the people instead. And the one accountable for it is, of course, the one accountable for it. And then responsible is the one who's supposed to implement it. And then consulted are people who should be involved, and informed are just those who don't have to agree and participate at all, but they should be informed about the change. But this is a model that's quite good to use as well. Coming back to the presentation, I think you had a really good collaboration between the 4 of you. You could answer our questions really well as well. On the improvement sides, I think in general that has been the case in all 3 presentations. Start out with the agenda, an agenda slide telling that today we're going to present you this after the summary or before the summary. Try to work a little bit with storyboarding better from slide to slide. And ensure to make spell checks and also how to visualize the business case better so that will become a little bit more clear.
And also that you got into the moving abroad with all the production units. Try not to fall into that kind of trap, because this was an extremely emotional subject for you. So you could have lost the client. I mean, they would only be thinking about 28 people for the rest of the presentation.
So I can think of who you're presenting to.
So have you proposed that situation should have been handled when you were really stressed about it?
I would say the way of actually presenting it, slowly build it up, saying that we believe that when we make our calculations, we see that there is actually no rational aspect of having it in Sweden. So then slowly build up the arguments to that. Our suggestion could be that unless you definitely want to stay in Sweden, we think it would be good to perhaps look into options abroad, rather than saying it to start with. We think that the only way of doing it is scrapping it here and then set up businesses abroad. Then it's a really tricky issue to work with. But try to build up it from bottoms up, and with the emotional aspects of it to start. Great.
Yeah.
Anything else? Anything else from you? Fantastic. Thanks.